Hello and welcome back to Master Your Money and Mindset, the show where we dive deep into the secrets of personal finance, building and maintaining wealth, and the power of the mindset surrounding money. I am your host, Elizabeth Hiza. Today, we are exploring a topic very close to the heart of many families. And that topic is whether to make the choice if one parent could stay home full time with the children, if one parent can leave the workforce to stay at home full time. This decision is deeply personal. It's influenced by a ton of factors, from financial considerations to parenting philosophies to lifestyle choices, career aspirations. So it is certainly not an easy decision that a family has to make. I seem to be hearing more and more stories like this in my circle of friends. I just seem to be hearing a lot of families weighing with this topic. So I wanted to bring it to our listeners and see if we can have some financial help from a professional to see what goes into a decision like this, or what should go into making a decision like this. So for today's show, I brought on financial professional Ben Howarth. Ben has been a financial advisor for 20 plus years. And over those 2 decades, he has helped hundreds of clients navigate the most important life decisions and financial decisions. Ben is also a very experienced teacher of financial wellness in the workplace. Ben teaches at corporations, municipalities, and hospitals all throughout the country. In addition, Ben is a very, very active member of his community and overall just a really great guy. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today.
Of course. This is a big topic. I feel like a lot of people are navigating this. And like I said in my intro, a lot of people maybe in our phase of life are navigating this.
It's definitely becoming more and more prevalent where people are asking, how do I do this? How could we do this? Is it possible? Because they'd like to be able to stay home, one of the two parents.
Yep. So you spend your days meeting with clients, right? You spend your weeks meeting with clients. Do you hear people bring this up to you?
Yeah, almost every day we're belly to belly with clients. And more often we're hearing people ask, is it possible for one of us to stay home? Or even is it required, just because of the cost of some of the daycare and some of the different things that people are going through?
That was my next question. What, in your experience, brings couples to this decision? Is it maybe forced money, or is it a more lifestyle choice?
I think it's both. I think for some parents, it's forced money. They don't have help in the area. Maybe the grandparents are still working because maybe they didn't plan properly, or they don't live near here because of whatever factor, or they're just not living, right? But I think some of those parents are dealing with cost of daycare, and they just can't afford to put their children in some type of daycare facility because they can't afford it. Yeah. I think the other group it's a financial decision, and they say, hey, we're financially okay. Maybe one of us can stay home and make that choice to stay home with the children and be more active in their growing up in the school system and going on field trips and those types of things.
Yeah. Do you think tradition plays a part in this at all?
I don't think so. I think maybe it used to, but not as much as it does now. Like right now, I've got a couple who husband stays home. She's the breadwinner, and he had a fairly big career, and they just made the decision that it was better for them to have somebody to get the kids off the bus, get them to the school trips. And they chose that he was the one that they were going to stay home. So I don't think tradition as much as it used to plays a factor.
I think you're right. It's a lot. In my household, both my husband and I work. I grew up in a household where both parents work, and it is a constant logistical battle of how my husband and I are going to navigate who's home for the half days, the random school days, the snow days. It's not easy. So I would imagine that I could see how a couple would say it's just easier for one of us to stay home, and you pay the price that way.
Yeah, you pay the financial price, but you've got the ability to say, hey,
Correct.
somebody can be home. And if you don't have the help, I look at my brother who's got 2 children. If my parents weren't around to help them, I don't know what the heck they would do.
Yeah.
Right. Because I got to get this one off the bus. I got to get this one to practice. The other one's got to go to a different practice. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And a lot of couples find it worth it to have that one parent be home to handle that aspect of life. So I can completely see that.
Absolutely.
So when a couple comes to you wrestling with this decision, where do you start?
I think it comes down to budgeting. I think when we do anything, whether it's retirement planning, whether or not we're planning for this decision for a couple, or I want to buy a house, it comes down to creating a plan and saying, here's what I want to accomplish. How do I do it? And I think the more granular you get with your budget, the more able you are to be able to make these decisions, because you know exactly what are my needs, what are my wants, what do I have to spend on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. And then you can make a conscious decision to then say, well, maybe we don't buy the bigger house. Maybe we don't buy the nicer car. Mm-hmm. We're going to buy the used car and we can afford it. But here's the financial decision and the trade that we're going to make in order to be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Yeah, I love what you just said, the trade we're going to make. Mm-hmm. And often on this show, we talk about trade-offs. That success in anything, but particularly with finances, will require a trade-off of some sort.
Yeah. Might not be able to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is okay.
It's okay.
Which
it's
is
absolutely
okay.
You know?
Because whatever your family unit needs, I would imagine, is most important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times we're sitting belly to belly with clients, and a lot of times the Joneses, the backside of their house is not too financially secure. They've got a lot of debt and they can be in a lot of trouble.
I love that. Yes. Yeah. The Joneses aren't so great. Couples who come to you, typically, are they coming to you, maybe when they're pregnant and they're wrestling with this, before their child has even arrived? Or is it, they have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old and a baby on the way, and now they're wrestling with this?
I think it's all over the board. Yeah. We say this a lot about retirement. You're never further away from retirement than you are right now today, right? So it's the same thing with this decision. So the earlier you come to someone and sit down with them and go through a plan and say, this is what we'd like to accomplish, the better off you'd be. Some clients, like I've got one client out in Arizona right now that we're talking to, that they're planning on having a child. So one of them is not going to necessarily leave the workforce permanently, but for a while, that's the plan. So we're planning to save, to say, here's what we need to have put away before we have a child. Mm-hmm. I've got some people that come to me after the fact and say, well, what do we do? This isn't working. It's too much hassle to run here and there. One of us has got to leave the workforce. So everyone is different, but I think that the sooner you plan for this type of event, the sooner you plan for any type of event, the better off you're going to be.
Definitely. So when it comes to budgeting, what do people need to know about making this plan or making this decision?
So I feel that with budgeting, it comes down to expenses. I like teaching clients about the envelope system. So if you remember the old envelope system, you'd say, or your parents or your grandparents said, well, I've got a bill. That bill's $100. I'm going to stuff $25 each week in the envelope. And then at the end of the month, I get the $100 for the bill. Well,
that method is still really popular.
It's still very popular. I don't advocate you have a bunch of envelopes in your house. That's a really bad idea.
Yes,
right?
Digitize that process.
But digitize that process with checking accounts. The bank does not care how many checking accounts you have. So if you could coordinate and say, all right, here's my fixed bills, my mortgage, my car payment, my car insurance, the things that are always the same, and direct deposit right out of your paycheck. I'll make up the numbers. $4,000 a month is what you need. $2,000 per paycheck. If you get paid twice a month, direct deposit into that account. Mm-hmm. Then you've got your variable bills, the groceries, the gas for the car, the oil, the electricity, things that are close, but not the same every single month.
Sure.
Direct deposit. That's $2,000. Direct deposit $1,000 per month into that. Then the emergency savings account. That's the one a lot of people forget. Yeah. You need to plan for that emergency. Direct deposit into your emergency savings account. If it's direct deposit, you don't have to think about it. Whatever's left is the U bucket. If you want to spend the U bucket, you want to blow the U bucket, great. Do whatever you want with the U bucket. But if it's not in the U bucket, do not violate the other buckets and go reach in. If you plan to get that granular and you know exactly what those expenses are, you can make a conscious decision to say, I'm going to make that trade-off. One of us is going to stay home. There's going to be less in the U bucket. We can't do as much discretionary, but I've planned purposely, intentionally
Yes.
with those other buckets. And here's what the trade-off's going to be.
Yes. I love that. That was really tactical. The fixed budget, your variable bucket, and your emergency fund.
Correct. And some people will even break it down further. They'll say, I want to buy a home. So I want to buy a home in 4 years. And this is good for younger people that are trying to buy a home, or even people that are buying the second home, the retiree, the pre-retiree. I want to buy a home in 4 years.
Yes.
How many paychecks do I have between now and then? If I systematically direct deposit it into that account over that amount of paychecks, I'm going to have that money saved. Yeah. I want to have a child. I want to get out of the workforce within the next 5 years. How much money do I need to save by the child goes to kindergarten? And break it down so granular that you don't have to think about it. The beginning part is hard.
Yes.
But once you get it set up, it's easy. It's just coordinating and just following
and then
the
just
plan.
Doing it.
Following the plan.
And then just doing it. Do you find couples, when they start early, are able to do that?
Absolutely. I think the earlier you start to do that, the better you are. I think with retirees, it's really important as well to get used to that fixed budget. But I had a lady who was in a bunch of debt. She just got out of college. She wanted to buy a house. She was wrestling with starting a family, buying a home, paying off college debt, and she was just in trouble.
It's
overwhelming. And we went through this budgeting plan with her. And about a year and a half later, she said, we're buying a home. And we couldn't have done it without that budgeting plan. Right.
Nice.
So it was nice. But the point is that you got to plan. Yeah. And if you get super granular, you can make it happen. And
we talk a lot on this show about like kind of inertia or people kind of burying their heads, because it's overwhelming to think about getting yourself out of debt or like buying a home. My goodness, that's such a huge expense. Where do you even start? So people tend to not start, which is kind of the worst thing you can do. So that message all plays in here as well. You just have to say, today is the first day of the rest of my financial life, and I'm going to do it. And take control. Don't let money control you. You be in charge of your money. I love that. And you working with clients every day, you see people reach these objectives. 100%. And that's what's part of the rewarding part of our career, is seeing people accomplish these goals, being able to stay home with their children, buy the home, retire, do the things that they always dreamed of being able to do. And is it true, Ben, do you find that these trade-offs that somebody may have to make to stay home with a child while the other parent continues to work are temporary? That over the course of time, expenses may go down a little bit, maybe they'll go up a little bit, but income will also maybe go up a little bit. And that over time, those trade-offs will look differently. I think the trade-offs will definitely look differently. Think about it in the context of COVID. We had a lot of clients that come to us and say, wow, I'm spending so much less money and I'm doing okay, right? Yeah. I'm not going out to eat as much. I'm not shopping and buying as many clothes. Things are different, but things were still okay. Right? They weren't exactly okay the way we'd want them to be, but people were fine and they were spending less money and they got along fine. Yes, that's a really great example, aside from the epidemic part, the pandemic part. But you're right. People did spend a lot less money and spend a lot more time with their family. Yes. And that was also part of the reason why people say, hey, you know what? I want to make that trade-off. I can spend less money so I can spend more time and have more experiences with my family. You got it. And I think that's where a lot of these decisions are stemming from, is maybe couples who were just home more, and maybe your professional life changed during COVID for whatever reason. And they kind of got to thinking, where can they spend? What's the best use of their time? Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing. What else should people consider as they navigate this decision, aside from expenses? Yeah, I think taking advantage of all the different programs that are available to you at work, all the different tax advantages. So as an example, an HSA. So if you are using an HSA at work, you have what's called a health savings account. You can put money away pre-tax. So you're saving money on taxes. That money is now growing tax-free. And when you take it out for medical expense, it's also not being taxed. Right. So if you put more money away into one of those for your medical expenses, if you're use 25% tax bracket, if you put $1,000 away, you save $250. Well, that $250 may be part of a tank of oil. Yes. So if I'm
using the different tools that are available to me. Diapers, right? I don't know how many boxes of diapers now that would cover, but you're saving money. If you utilize the program, which is a savings account for dependent care. So if they do have to do daycare or even babysitting, you can save money out of this camps, out of the dependent care savings account. Again, $1,000 you put away, you're saving around $250 in taxes. That's $250 extra to your budget. So utilizing all the tools, shopping for your car insurance, be a consumer, shop on your life insurance, make sure you have enough life insurance, make sure you have the right disability insurance. Those are all things you need to make sure you have. But do I have the right type? Am I paying too much so that you are a consumer and you're not just letting things happen and burying your head in the sand?
Yes. It's like purposefully managing that budget and making sure that you can take advantage of everything that's available to you. In addition to the HSAs and the dependent care, what other programs should people be aware of?
I think don't forget about your 401k. I think some of the other things is people just plan for today. Compounding interest is really important. So make sure you're not sacrificing your retirement as well. They make student loans, not retirement loans. So you need to continue to make sure you save for that. Don't miss out on the match. But those are really the main factors. Budgeting, I think, is key.
It's key.
Very key.
I love that you talk about retirement because people do tend to plan for today, to spend for today. And I would imagine that's a big piece of the advice that you give families is they don't want to sacrifice, even though this decision is important, you don't want to swap one problem for another. And then when you go to retire, you don't have enough.
Correct.
Because you use that income.
Absolutely. And especially for the younger people that are not having families, who knows what Social Security looks like when they get there. You need to be your number one financial priority. So you've got to make the conscious decision, do the math, do the planning to figure out, is this a trade-off that financially we can make, right? You'd love to be able to be there all the time to get the kids off the bus and go to practices and those types of things. But financially, it may not work, right? So you need to make that plan first and don't trade off everything like retirement. You need to make sure that you're planning for those things too. It's tough. You've got a lot of balls in the air that you got to juggle. But if you plan, you're able to figure out, can I accomplish it?
Yep. What I love too now is that there's so many little ways to bring in a few extra bucks, right? Like, I don't know if you talk about this with your clients or if your clients ask your advice on it, but as a marketer, there's so many different ways to make money online, whether it's freelancing, whether it's side hustling, whether it's creating content, whether it's using like an Ebates account where, you get paid to shop. There's so many little things like that.
100%. So if credit cards, use the things that you're getting points back for the things that you use, reward points. Maybe you've got some part-time gig where you're a dog walker, right? Or you're walking dogs while the kids are at school, or you're doing something different. I had a guy who was delivering bagels. So he just, picked up in the morning and dropped off some bagels, right? Who doesn't love a bagel? So, you want to look at some of these other little things that you could do on the side. So you have, like you said, a side hustle.
Yeah. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who, when she was home, when her kids were young, she nannied for another little girl. So the mom would drop the little girl off and they got to hang out all day. And she's like,
to play with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't a ton of money, but she was like, it was enough for me to have, to get my coffee and gas, put gas in the car, things like that. Right. Like that was a big deal to her with very little extra effort.
Right.
On top of what she was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a lot of little things like that.
A lot of little things that you can do. I guess be a consumer. Think about all those little things, and all those little things add up to a big thing.
Yeah, they do. When you're talking to couples, what is their biggest pain point in this decision? It's really the money. Yeah. It's really the money. It's making that trade-off we want to be there to get the kids off the bus. We want to be there to go on the field trips. We want to be there to bring them to practice or coach. It's the trade-off between the money. Financially, can we afford it? And I think you can afford things if you plan, but you're going to have to make the trades. Maybe I can't have the brand new car. Maybe I can't have the brand new big house with the pool in the back. I've got to have a smaller home. And it's tough today with interest rates as you're making some of those decisions. But the pain point's really around the money versus the trade-off. Yeah, I can see that. Have you ever had couples come back to you after the fact And kind of give their, I know you especially, Ben, have clients for a long, long time. What do they say after they've made the jump?
So sometimes people love that they made the jump and it's going really well, but we've also had clients that say, this isn't working, right? This isn't working.
Not what I thought it was going to be.
Not what I thought it was going to be. And maybe I'm going to go do something part-time rather than full-time so I can be there to do some of this stuff, but I'm home by myself all day and I'm bored. What am I going to do? And it's not what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And also sometimes when you have all that time in your hands, you may spend more because you're bored and you're like, oh, well, let's go get coffee. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Let's go meet the other parents. Right. And that can be tough too. So you got to be conscious of that.
Yeah. A lot of factors. There's just so many factors that go into this decision. And I could see how couples struggle with it. But I could also see how rewarding it could be. The friends that I know have made the leap have found it wonderful. But to your point, along comes the challenges that go with it.
We've had clients even after the children get back into the point where they're going to high school or they're going to junior high school and they say, all right, well, now I'm ready to get back in the workforce.
Yeah.
One of the other decisions that you have to think about is when you get back into the workforce, you may have had this really big job where you were making what you were worth, right? Your experience, but being out of the workforce and then coming back into the workforce, it's going to be hard to get back in at that same position. So you're kind of starting over again too. So that's another decision and a choice that you've got to think through. With everything you're doing financially, you need to think through all the moving pieces, and your life is a puzzle financially, right? Yeah. You got to think about all the moving pieces of this puzzle and then have someone help you put them together, because there's things you're not thinking about that you really should be thinking about.
So work with a professional.
Work with a professional, right? It doesn't have to be us, but you want to have it be someone like us that understands all the moving pieces so that they can help guide you and explain to you some of the things that maybe you're not thinking about. And then you can make a conscious decision. You're the CEO. If it's anything like my house, I have 50, or my wife's got 51% ownership of the corporation. But when you're at home, you make the decisions, but you want someone, a CFO, to give you the different options.
And this is what you're all here for, right? These are the types of decisions that your clients should be bringing to you, even when there maybe it's just a small light bulb, a small light, a small question. They should be kind of coming to you all with this question and saying, what do we need to take into consideration, versus when one of the parents is already like, nope, I've made the decision. I want to do this. Yeah. Now what?
Yeah. The best clients, or the best relationships we have with clients, are those that come and ask the questions. Yeah. The most important meetings we have with people are, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? Tell me what's going on. Yeah. And then we have the resources here at Barnum to help you figure it out. Yeah. I'm not an expert in everything, but we've got resources here to say, well, let's look at it this way. Let's look at it that way, and come up with a solution. So I'll give you an example. I had a client that met with their accountant. They were getting ready. He was widowed. They had a son, and they were getting ready to plan for college. He was refinancing his house, and at the time had talked to his accountant, and his accountant said, well, why don't you take some extra money out and put it aside to pay for college? Great theoretically, but now the problem is he's got all this money in cash. When he went to go for financial aid, he didn't qualify because he had all this money built up in cash that he now has to spend down. It wasn't intentional on the accountant's part. The accountant just didn't know any better, and the client didn't ask. So it's a lot easier for us to go through things and make a decision consciously, intentionally, rather than unwind, because sometimes you can't get the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah. Ben, when I was preparing for this show and I was talking to a lot of people about the concept and, just what else we need to think about, a lot of other financial professionals mention the tax advantages to having one person stay home. Now, not that we're accountants, but can you touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens is, if you've got a married couple that are filing jointly, you have a higher income limit that you can make for each bracket. So there's the 10% bracket, the 12% bracket, the 22% bracket. So if you've got one person working and you're making less income, you may actually be paying less in taxes. Because you're paying less in taxes, you keep more money in your pocket. You're making less money, but now you get to keep more of the dollars that you're putting in. When you are doing that and you're making less income, it's really important for you to decide, where am I going to put my retirement dollars? Should I put those dollars into a pre-tax 401k account where I get a tax break? Or should I potentially do a Roth IRA or Roth 401k where I pay the taxes today and they continue to grow tax-free forever? What happens is, if you do pre-tax, let's say you're in the 12% tax bracket, put away $1,000, you're saving $120 in taxes.
Yeah.
If I fast forward later, whatever tax bracket I am in the future, I'm going to pay taxes on that full $1,000 again.
Yeah.
I'm in the same bracket I am today that I am in the future. I probably should have done Roth, because all that growth would be tax-free.
Yeah.
So because you're in a lower tax bracket, really want to intentionally decide, am I going to do Roth where I pay no taxes in the future because I haven't been able to save as much money? I keep more money in my pocket on the way down the mountain, taking income out.
Yeah. That's a pretty big deal. And again, that's a strategy, right? That's pretty strategic.
Absolutely a strategy. And one you may not have thought, right?
Yeah,
when
definitely not.
Both parents are working, you check the box, I'm doing pre-tax 401k contribution. Yes. And then all of a sudden you're in a lower income bracket now.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to switch now to Roth?
Yep. Or people take that tax saving and just kind of spend it.
And they just spend it.
Yeah. Just look at it as advantageous, and they take the extra $100 and do with it what they will.
Absolutely.
Versus being strategic with that. That's great. Ben, it sounds like although this decision is complex and definitely requires time and effort, it sounds like it's very possible.
It's very possible, right? Everyone can't do it, but it is very possible. Everyone's different. Your goals are different. What you want to accomplish is different. The key is, have a plan, sit down with someone and determine, here's what I want. How do I get there? Yeah. And then we can let you know, is it possible? Isn't it possible?
And what the timeline will look like.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And the sooner you start, the better off you are.
Definitely. As always.
As with everything.
Ben, thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure having you on. This was a great conversation, and I hope we helped a lot of folks navigate this.
Appreciate you having us here. Hope we help some people too.